All right. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you all for joining us. It is our honor today to host former New Jersey Governor Christine Todd Whitman, also co-chair of the Forward Party. We are very excited to have you on. Thank you for joining us this morning, Governor.
That's a pleasure. I'm glad to be with you. And thank you, Brian, for setting this up. And thanks to all of you who are on the Zoom for being interested in Forward. I thought probably the best thing, and Brian, tell me if you'd like me to handle it differently, but I'd just give a little overview of Forward and make sure people understand what we're about, because we're very different from an ordinary party. And it takes some time to appreciate the fact that we are going to be a party. We are a party based on principles rather than specific positions on every issue, the way current parties operate. That doesn't mean we don't have stands, and we don't take stands, and we don't have standards. We absolutely do. But we have these basic principles that are simple things like respect for the rule of law, upholding the Constitution, economic opportunity for all, security at home and abroad, and a willingness to change the way we elect our representatives. Because until we break the hold of the two parties on how we choose our elected representatives, we're never going to change the system. And that's why we ask that anyone who wants to be associated with Forward agree to that. And particularly our emphasis is on ranked choice voting, open primaries, because that's the way that does a couple of things. It forces candidates to talk to everybody because they can't just rely on their base. Right now, even in as contentious a time as we have had and are having in the country, only 10% of the eligible voters vote in primaries. And that means you have the most partisan people making the choices for the fall. And they tend to be more to the extremes. And it's something that continues to drive this wedge between the two parties. We want people who will work together. And that's another one of our demands, as it were, or requirements, if you want to be associated with Forward and recognized as such, is to agree to work across the aisles. And we will, frankly. We're in a position now, particularly where we support candidates who run as Republicans, Democrats, Independents. You don't have to give up that if you really want to keep your party identification. But yet, if you agree with the Forward Party principles, we can endorse you. We did this, and we did it in the last cycle. And we were successful in some races. And obviously, as things go, we lost in some. But we're now a movement in just about every state. We've got people working on every state. In fact, I was just in Nevada yesterday, where they have achieved party status recognition, as has Texas and Maine. And we expect Florida and North Carolina to be recognized as parties by next week, or the next 3 weeks, I should say. We have at least 35 states with active organizations where we have an executive director or somebody who's taken on leadership there. We're mostly made of volunteers, although we have a staff, a full-time staff of about 35, 33 or 35. That's changed a little bit. As you may or may not know, we're the amalgam of 3 different parties. Andrew Yang's Forward Party, David Jolly, a former Republican congressman from Florida's Save America movement, and Miles Taylor's Renew America movement. And we each started to try to bring our respective parties back to the center. And we've discovered pretty quickly that wasn't going to work. And we decided for instance, Andrew Yang is one of my co-chairs, and I don't think I agree with Andrew on a whole lot of positions, but we both are absolutely dedicated to the importance of saving our democracy. And that's why we work very well together on Forward and bringing these issues to the forefront. We've had some success already. As I said, there were 10 ballot initiatives last cycle on ranked choice voting, 8 of which passed. So it's a movement that's starting to grow. But of course, the other thing is, as soon as it does, and the parties recognize that this has some legs to it, they start to push back hard, and they will. I mean, New Jersey right now has the opportunity. There are a couple of bills in the Assembly and one in the Senate that have to do with ranked choice voting. It's going to be a tough battle, but if people stand up and say, this is what we want, this is the kind of choice we want to be able to have. There are 500,000 elective offices across this country. And in election cycles, fully 70% of them have no contest. There's only one candidate running. We feel that's absolutely wrong. That's not what we're about. Everyone should have a choice. There's just no question in our minds about that. We're not going to be running a presidential candidate in 2024. We have a board has decided that it's just not feasible. It takes too much money, the groundwork. We're focused on the ground up. This is a people's movement, a movement that is creating a party. This is people who are dissatisfied with the way our government is running today. They don't feel it's responsive to them, that their elected officials don't really care about them. Once they get in office, their main focus is staying in office rather than responding to the needs of their constituents. So when I said we wouldn't be having hard positions as forward party on particular issues, we're going to recognize that there are differences. I mean, for instance, you take the gun issue. What's right for Nevada is very different than what people are going to want in New Jersey. And so when a forward party candidate is asked about that issue, they should answer as they feel and their constituents want. We'll probably have a convention of some sort, whether it's virtual or not, we haven't decided yet, by the end of the summer, early fall. And at that time, we probably will also then outline what we think are the major issues that need to be addressed that are tearing the country apart. I mean, and things that get us back on track. I mean, for instance, redistricting is an issue that should be taken up. Money in politics is an issue that should be taken up. How to handle guns and the choice. Those things are all major issues that are dividing our country, but we're not going to tell our candidates, and this is the position you have to have on guns or choice. That's going to be up to them and their constituents. It's a way to try to, it's what our founding fathers wanted. I mean, they warned us. They said, be careful of parties, because what can happen is the parties start to trump policy. And that's exactly what we've seen now. Everything is looked at through the partisan political prism and not through the policy prism. So we're dedicated to breaking that down and giving the people back the power that they need to control what's happening in Washington. And we do that by having forward party affiliated or forward party members. Unfortunately, in New Jersey, it's tough. New Jersey is one of the toughest states to get registered as a third party, but it's actually really easy to become an independent candidate. And so one of the things you can do in New Jersey is look around and encourage people to run as independent candidates, help to get them on the ballot as independent candidates, associated with forward, and then support them. And as you start to build that momentum and people hear more about what forward is and what opportunities it can open up, we start to get more people involved. And I know you will, I know we will in New Jersey. I will tell you, having been in several of the states and talking to people, we have people from every walk of life. I mean, it's really exciting to see. We have young people, we have middle-aged, old, we have blue-collar workers, we have CEOs of major companies. So that this is something that really is responding. Over 60% of registered voters today are registered independent. New Jersey, the independents outweigh either of the parties. And those are people saying, we're fed up. We don't think these two parties represent us, either one of them. They're too extreme. They're going too extreme. And so this is the right time. This is the moment. The last election cycle was really good news because a lot of people on both sides of the aisle stood up and protected our democracy, but it was a very near thing in a bunch of elections. And we need to protect this incredible form of government that we have. And it's not perfect, nothing ever is, but it's the best form, as I say, as every other, of any other form of government around the world. But it's fragile and we need to be there to protect it. And we think forward is the way to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. When you say preaching to the choir, I mean, wow. And one of the things that I do know about a lot of our supporters is that what you've shared echoes so deeply in a lot of us. Many of us have seen the evolution within the parties, and it's almost like there's a lack of consciousness within each of them, to the point where they're really focused on the polarizing issues and continue to just consistently blame each other rather than trying to come up with, practical solutions, common sense programs to address a lot of the issues in this country. But rather than fixing the issues, it almost seems like they want to prolong the issues until election season to really drive their base.
Well, they do. A perfect example, Ryan, is that in 2021, I can't remember, it was about the end of 2021, George Bush sent up a bill to the Hill on immigration. And I thought it was a very balanced bill, but whether you think it was a balanced bill or not, he sent a bill up. They never even held a hearing on it because neither party wanted to solve the problem. It's one that they want to use to excite their base to get more votes in the next election. And that's a travesty. I mean, real people are being hurt. We're in real trouble when our government is focused on just staying in power, the people in it just staying in power and not solving the problems. And that's why we need these independent voices who have something behind them. Because in the past, the problem has been when you've had an independent candidate, there was no structure behind them. They didn't feel they had the support. We at Forward are going to give them that support. And we're going to work on ensuring that we have candidates in every one of those seats where there isn't a challenge. But we do that through the people on the ground. I mean, again, when I take any of these issues, the answers are going to be different in different states. What works for one community doesn't necessarily work in another. And so you have to respect those differences, actually celebrate them. In New Jersey, we are so diverse. It's what gives us our strength and our texture. But you have to recognize that, embrace that, and not be scared by the fact that there'll be people in Forward who will take positions with which you don't agree. But it's because they're representing their state and their constituents. And as long as they are those principal people who agree to our platform, our basic core values, we're okay because we can work together. You can have differences with people and not hate them. You can have rational conversations with people who are not on the same side as you are. And it's amazing once you do sit down that way with those people with whom you don't agree, you can find solutions to a lot of these problems. If you're willing to sit down and say, is this a problem? Yes. Okay. What do we do about it? If we both agree it's a problem, but we're coming from two entirely different angles at it, let's see where we can come together in the middle and really start to make things work.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And just as a reminder to all participants, we're going to hold off on the Q&A towards the end. We have sourced some questions that we'd like to tackle first, and towards the end, we'll open it up to everyone. I see my good friend Steve Barrett with his hand raised. Keep it raised. You're at the top of the list. So we'll continue here. So as far as the co-chair of the Forward Party, you get to basically see what's going on in almost every single state, which really gives you an incredible eagle eye of the state of democracy across the country. As the New Jersey chapter of the Forward Party, right? Our focus is really on what's going on here within the state. So from your perspective, what would you say is the state of democracy reform throughout New Jersey?
It's not where I'd like it to be. I'd like to see more openness. I'd like to see, we have a pretty strong party structure, and the line is something that is difficult to get over because people they vote for the first and then they go straight down the line. And the party leaders are the ones who can determine who's at the top of that. So in the beginning, it's going to be clear that the independent candidates that have the Forward support are going to be at the bottom. But we can, by getting out, what we have to understand, what everybody really has to understand is that if you talk, people respond to their friends. Let me put it that way. They respond to people whom they respect in their community, whether it's a police chief or a religious leader or mayor, somebody from the council, or just really their good friend. And if you start talking about what the potential is, if we stand up and ask and demand differences, if we demand an opening of the process, if we say we want to see Forward candidates be able to compete with an open, a real ability to do it, not get shut down, it'll make a difference. And it's going to take, in New Jersey, it's going to take longer. Parties are very much in control and they don't want to see this happen. In states like, for instance, Alaska's had ranked choice voting for a while. It's worked very well for them. They like it. But right now, all of a sudden, because of this last election cycle, when it made such a difference in that election, in those elections, the Republicans and Democrats both are trying to stop ranked choice voting and trying to repeal it. I don't think the citizens in Alaska are going to allow that, but that's what we have to expect to see. We have to expect to see a real fight by the party people, the partisan people, but that can't stop a momentum that is really growing and dedicated to ensuring that our democracy stays strong and healthy.
Couldn't agree more. Now, with the you talked about, the footprint of Forward in 35 different states, right? With the plan to hold a convention towards the end of the summer, which may be virtual, maybe in person. But as far as the progress of Forward on the national level, right? I know that there are some states that are seeing a little bit more success than others, but from the time that the announcement came out to where we are today, how would you describe that progress nationally?
Extraordinary. I mean, it's amazing. We've been in existence less than 6 months, or around about 6 months. And what we're talking about, and anybody who is a business person understands how difficult it is to do a merger with 2 fully operational entities, much less 3. We have had 3 that were fully staffed, fully functioning. We've had to meld them. That's taken some time. But, we have 10,000 members in Texas. We have, as I've said before, we have parties that have already achieved party status. They've put together the organization. They've been recognized now, so they are on the ballot or will be on the ballot shortly. They're recognized as a party, as an independent party. And that's just mind-boggling. But the enthusiasm of the people who are part of Forward has been extraordinarily rewarding and makes you feel good about our country. There are just so many people, particularly people your age, the younger people, who are saying, we've got to change this. This system isn't working for us. We're not happy. I mean, I'm sorry, but to see the senators, when we have a budgetary crisis coming at us, we have climate change, we have immigration, we have gun issues, to see the senators sitting up there having and speaking very seriously about Miley Cyrus and the ticket scandal. I mean, really? That's what you want to do, is talk about tickets for a performer? It makes you want to say, come on, guys, we have real problems, real issues. Deal with them. Don't do these things that are just for show, just to try to relate to their constituents by saying how bad it is that Ticketmaster blew it. It's frustrating. And I think it's emblematic of what we're dealing with and why we need to change the system.
Such an interesting perspective as someone who's kept up with the story and recognized, yeah, that is a problem. It's so interesting how it does take away from, borderline catastrophic level problems that we're facing. So I couldn't agree with you more there, Governor. Thank you so much for pointing that out. Now,
Taylor Swift, that's who it was. It wasn't Miley Cyrus, it was Taylor Swift.
I think when you said Ticketmaster, we all knew what you meant.
Yeah.
So specifically here in New Jersey, what are some of the things that you foresee that need to happen at the state level for Forward to wield more influence over legislators and voters?
I think everybody who was on this call, or whatever you want to call it, this Zoom meeting, needs to talk to their family and their neighbors and tell them about Forward. It's hard to get it out. We are in the process, just so that everybody understands, our website is not what it needs to be. If you just go to forwardparty.com, it's pretty generic and vanilla, and you have to go down to another level to get more information. We're in the process of redoing that, and the website should be functional. A new website should be functional within the next week, 10 days. So we're working on that, understanding that it's hard to get the message out the way it's set up. But for people who are on this call or this Zoom meeting, you've heard more about it. If you're comfortable with it, if you think this is something that you can get behind, then start talking to people about it. Start bringing them up, urging people to go to the website, even if it's just the one that we have up now, but to go to the website and sign up and become part. because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take a lot of voters in New Jersey to get Forward recognized as a party, the way our rules are, our laws are there. I mean, the parties have been in tight control. When you talk about what's the status of democracy, it's a little problematic because the parties have so much control that they don't make it easy for third parties, that they don't make it easy for independent. Well, they do make it. It is easy for independent candidates, but I think that's because they feel they never have a chance. And we're going to surprise them. We can surprise them if we start talking to people, recruiting people, and recruiting candidates who are willing to run as independent, and we'll get you behind you. You'll have the support that you need that you wouldn't have had before.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting you say that. So the leadership team, Carolyn, Steve, Jason, Tanner, Dan, Gail, we have met cumulatively with hundreds of people. And one of the things that we've realized is that the message is not the problem. The message works. People love the message. It's the amplification of the message that we're missing. So to the governor's point, it is so critical. The reason why you like Forward, tell people that. Tell them why you support democracy reform, because this is very logical. It's not a hard sell. It's simply getting the message across to people. So please talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends about this, because all we can do is really work at growing this movement one supporter at a time. And it all starts with delivering the message and amplifying that. So I couldn't agree with you more there, Governor.
And the other thing to remember is even if we only get a couple of candidates who are Forward associated in the next cycle, let's say, or in 2 years, it doesn't take a lot to make a huge difference. And in the legislature, you don't need to have 50% Forward people. All you need is 3 or 4, and they can form a block that can really make a difference. And the Senate is even less, just a couple of people who are willing to stand up. And I also think you will find then that there are members of the Republican and Democratic parties who really want to be freed from the strictures that they're under right now with their party organizations, and they will start to join with those independents. And as I said, we as a party are willing to support Republicans and Democrats who are running with those labels if they agree to our platform, our set of principles, I should say.
Yeah, incredible. Now, you did mention earlier on in regards to the control of the machines and how they're not really threatened by just independent candidates. But when you're talking about third parties, this is when the guard goes up and they fight tooth and nail to try to prevent this. Aside from spreading the message, talking to friends and family about Forward, about democracy reform, from a structural perspective, right? You can run for office, which is challenging for a combination of close primaries, gerrymandering, the line. It is challenging. New Jersey is probably one of the, from my perspective and from what I know, one of the heaviest machine-controlled political systems in the country. So from your perspective, aside from amplifying the message, spreading the Forward movement, and running for office under the Forward flag, what are some of the other things that you think would need to happen for Forward to start breaking up that machine control?
Well, first, it starts with your organization. I mean, you need to get an organization that's formalized with somebody who is recognized as a chair with a governing body, as it were, to help you do that hard work. It's the hard work of building a party, which is never easy. I mean, it was 3 years after the Republican Party, sort of, or was it 6 years between the time that in Ripon, where the Republican Party became a third party, before Abraham Lincoln was elected running under that banner. I mean, it takes time and it takes work. But the first thing that you need to do in New Jersey is get really organized so that we can have a better dialogue between Forward National and Forward New Jersey. I mean, we work pretty well together now anyway, but that's what has to happen in order to ensure that we can get the organization set up such that it's then prepared to work toward getting on the ballot.
And that's a great segue for a lot of our supporters that are on this call. Earlier this week, you did receive an email from us titled subject line, Leaders Rise Up. As a state leadership team, we are pushing hard for that organization, and we need your support at the county level. We want to start setting up county leadership teams. If you did not see that email, please reach out to me directly. You can reply to any of the Forward Party emails and it'll come to me, and I will be happy to send you that form. But if you feel like you're up for organizing, and we're not asking you for 4 hours a week or anything like that, right? We're all volunteer based, but we just need point people within counties. We need people who are leaders, people who want to organize, to please rise up so that we can start working with you on building your infrastructure on a county level. So again, there is an email that went out. If you have not seen it, you can reply to any Brian from New Jersey Forward Party email, like the reminder for this event. I will get that, and we will get you the form and see if we can work together.
Ryan, it's interesting you say that, and that's exactly what has to happen. But the interesting thing, it's an old saw, but it's still true. All politics is local. So you need to be organizing at the local level, at the municipal level, at the county level. I mean, try to get your local mayor or some members of the local council to recognize Forward. That's the way you start it, and that's the way you start to get the word out. That's what's required, really needed, if we're going to be successful.
Yeah. One of the other things that would help guarantee our success is elimination of the line. So for those that are not aware, New Jersey's got something very unique. I think it's possibly the only state in the country that does this, where we have lines, right? And it's basically within primaries is really where it makes the biggest difference, because it's typically controlled by the county party or the county chairperson. To keep it short, if you get the line, you more or less start with 35% of the vote, right? And your name's going to be associated. Like if you're in a Democratic primary, it'll be associated with Biden. It'll be associated with New Jersey senators. There's a lot of brand recognition and value that comes with coming in under them, which helps you win. Even if people don't know you, if they have two people and they don't know either one, they're going to go with the one that's associated with all these other names that they do know. There is a current lawsuit right now in play. So Governor, I don't know if you could comment on this, but from your perspective, knowing what's going on, what are the chances of the line being eliminated or changed anytime soon?
I don't think they're very good, I'm afraid to say, but that's where Forward can come in. It's not going to happen in this session. It's not going to happen in the next session. It's going to take several more years, I think, because it's not in their best interest. I mean, why would you change a system that works so well for you, that guarantees you your seat? I mean, if you think about it, there's no incentive unless they hear from their constituents saying, damn it, we want this change. And unless we can find the kind of independent candidates and give them the support they need, who are Forward associated, and get them into the Assembly or the Senate and start to make the difference. But it's going to take a couple of years, I think, before we can see that, just because there's absolutely nothing for them, for those who are in power, who control the lines now. They don't want to give it up. And that's what's gone wrong with our system. We're so much about just keeping power because we want power, not about solving the problems that we need to solve for our communities.
Could not agree more, right? It's like, if they've got the key to the cookie jar, why would they give that up?
Yeah, exactly.
A great segue to my next question. There are 2 RCV bills right now, as you mentioned earlier, at the state Senate level, and then one at the Assembly level. Mm-hmm. Very brave legislators that have pushed for RCV. What incentive, with the way that New Jersey is structured, in order for bills to come to a vote, to be considered, it has a lot to do with the Senate president and the Assembly speaker. What incentives would they have to actually push these along? Do you foresee that they'll push them along?
The only incentive they have is if they hear from their constituents. If everybody who's on this Zoom meeting reaches out to all their friends and say, reach out to them, tell them you demand this, tell them you want this, tell them this is how you're going to decide your vote in the future for their party. So you can reach out, even if you're not in Sweeney's district, let's say, or somebody else of great influence, as it were, in the Senate or the Assembly. It's all right if you say, I'm just not going to vote for another Democrat if you don't move this along, or I'm not going to vote for another Republican if you don't move this along. Because the ones who have put the bills forward, they're out hanging out there. They're being attacked by their own parties now. They're actually being almost driven out of the parties because they're being so radical in doing this. You got to know that's the other side of it. It's not just to tell the ones who are opposing it that you won't support them if they don't. It's telling those who've proposed it, we've got your back. We'll work for you in the next election cycle. We will get you some support. We'll get you some money. We will work for you. We'll be out there doing the door-to-door for you. We support this because it's so important.
Yep. Thank you so much for that. We launched a campaign for many of you saw this in an email with an RCV campaign. It'll be sent. It's in the chat now. Steve Barrett just shared it. If you text go FWD, go forward, go FWD to 50409, it's going to prompt you through a few questions. It takes less than 30 seconds. It will actually trigger an email to the governor, to your Senate, to your state senator, and to your two assembly people with a letter from you, signed by you, advocating for the RCV bills that are in the legislature. To the governor's point, we have to let our legislators know that we care and that we want to see these bills supported. They're not going to do it unless they know their constituents care about this. So if you haven't done it yet, please follow the instructions in the chat in the Zoom. If you type on your phone 50409 and you text it go FWD, it'll trigger a series of questions. It'll take 30 seconds. And before the day's over, the governor, your state senator, and your two assembly people will receive a letter from you. So please go ahead and do that. All right. So a fun question. Would you ever consider running for office again under the forward flag?
No, but I would consider changing my registration to forward the minute I can in the state of New Jersey, believe me.
We're working on that. And last but not least, and you may have partially answered this already, but for those that want to lead locally in their towns, in their counties, what would you tell them to start doing? How should they organize? What should they focus on?
Well, first of all, get a whole lot of people signed up with them and start to talk to their elected leaders, start to figure out candidates, start to find candidates who will stand for office as forward party candidates or independent candidates associated with forward party. Join the statewide forward party and the national forward party so that people see that there really is momentum behind this, that people see that's the biggest thing we can show people. That's why I'm so pleased that we have so many members, people signed up, hundreds of thousands across the country who are actively part of forward. And particularly in those states where we have people who've worked hard and gotten on the ballot, gotten recognition on the ballot. I mean, if you think about it, the first few months, we weren't doing much exteriorly. We were trying to meld these three organizations together. That's where the main focus was, because everybody was fully staffed. They all had their own PR person. They all had their own policy person. So, that was tough. So we weren't even out there fully for at least 2 to 3 months. And yet we still now are on the ballot, recognized as a party in 3 states with 2 more to come on. We just announced day before yesterday that we're affiliating with the Common Sense Party in California. It takes 72,000 signatures to get, or 73, to get on the ballot there. The Common Sense Party already has over 30,000. So we think it's going to be really easy with forward backing to get the rest of those necessary signatures. And so that will be a big move when we get on the ballot in California. That's going to be a big change. And so we're going forward with common sense.
Wonderful. All right. So we're now going to open it up to our participants here. I just want to make a note, and I want to say thank you to the governor for hopping on with us. She is in very high demand on a national level, and she agreed to participate just for our New Jersey supporters. So please be very mindful and respectful in your questions, and I will take it one at a time. We will start with our good friend, Steve Barrett. If you would unmute yourself and ask the governor your question.
Good morning.
Morning.
Governor, first, thanks a lot for coming on and giving us this pitch and helping us understand how we might change. Very proud of you for stepping up and joining the Forward Party. So give you a hand for that. My question has to do with moving the goalposts. In New York, David Jolly's Serve America movement, I think it was back in 2010 or so, achieved party status in the state of New York. And the first order of business in the ensuing legislative session was to increase the threshold for party status. There obviously is a huge stake in holding the do not duopoly, the we, they, win, lose paradigm between the two parties. Is that on the radar screen? And what would the strategy be in New Jersey if, when we get status, we find the goalposts move?
We have to fight back. I mean, really, that's going to happen. That's going to happen again and again, I'm afraid, because it's when the parties discover that this is real and it threatens their control, they're going to push back with every lever they have. The only thing that will stop them is their citizens and their voters saying, no. I mean, it wasn't an easy battle to get it on, to be recognized as a party in Nevada. That didn't come easily. Florida is not coming easily. Believe me, they don't want it, but it's happening and it will happen. There are certain rules. It's hard for them to change the rules midway through a particular cycle. And so once you get through that cycle, if you can get party status within a cycle, they can't, then what they'll be doing is affecting the next independent party that wants to come along rather than you, because you're already established. And also it would be such a obvious flagrant effort to just keep control that I think the people, even at those who support the particular party, whether it's Republicans or Democrats that are driving this, will rise up and revolt. Because, you know, the majority of the American people are smack dab in the center. And that's true in New Jersey, where you have independent voters that outweigh the number of Republicans or registered Republicans and Democrats. And it's true across the nation. They just haven't had a place to go. They said, well, we want something different. We need something different. But where can I find a home? And that's what we're providing them. We're saying, here's the place to be. If you want to see a different system, if you want to see something that's more responsive to you, come join Forward, because that's what we're all about. We're about ground up control and recognizing and supporting those people who want to see these changes. And believe me, that can grow very fast. And even if you see the legislature trying to change, which they will, trying to change the rules, that's the way it's happening on everything. You change the referees, the people who are overseeing elections, to change the rules, to change the outcomes. And there are a lot of organizations fighting back against that. I co-chair something called States United Democracy Center, which is nonpartisan, completely nonpartisan. But what we do is work with secretaries of state, states attorney general, governors, to help them, and work with law enforcement to help them push back against some of these bills that are coming forward that will restrict access to the ballot. It's all part of the same thing. Yeah. And the states and the people in the states are we're the ones who control the power. It's up to us. I mean, we got in this position, frankly, because we'd stopped voting in primaries. When you only had a 10% turnout in primaries, which has been the average right along, those are your most partisan people, and they tend to be on the extremes. And then people didn't like their choices come the fall, and you want to say, okay, but did you vote in the primary?
Wonderful.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Next up, I see here Jason.
Hi, Governor Whitman.
Hi.
My question is on a strategic level, do you think we would be better off targeting like very local elections, municipal, maybe some county, or should we look to a strategy to attain statewide recognition through, say, a pressure campaign? For instance, Governor Murphy only won election by a few thousand votes in a few different counties. So that would, to me, open up potential leverage for running a center-left candidate in those, target areas. So I was just wondering what your instinct might be, if we should just build from the very small and eventually try to build up, or go after a statewide pressure campaign.
Well, frankly, Jason, I think you can do both. And I think we have to do both. It really matters who your mayor is. It matters who's on the school board, who's on the library commission. We've seen what's been happening in states where books are being thrown out and syllabuses are being overturned for not any particular reason that's necessarily beneficial for the kids or the public. And so that's where we as Forward and looking at candidates are focusing. We want to make sure that we have candidates who in those elections where, you know, people don't tend to vote in their school board elections in New Jersey particularly, and very often they're uncontested. When I look at my ballot in Hunterdon County every year, it's just amazing to me how many of the seats are uncontested. So, but by doing that, by working at that level, you're starting to create that mass that can influence the state level. And there's nothing to stop somebody from working and getting in touch with their local legislators and using the process that's been set up for ranked choice voting that Forward has set up in New Jersey, and doing that too, sending a letter to the governor at the same time. I mean, we can do both. It's important not to forget the local. And a lot of people want to go right to Congress or the presidency. We're not about that. We're about building a structure that's going to last. You have to have a strong foundation to move forward. And that's the local work that we're doing. But at the same time, you still can reach out and put pressure on somebody like Governor Murphy to make changes that make it better and more equitable for, say, independent candidates.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Cool. Next up here on my screen, I see Evan, my moderate Democratic friend.
Hi, Governor Whitman. How are you doing?
I'm good, Evan.
I actually saw you back in 2018 at the State Theater when you were talking to Bob Woodward, and that was a very interesting discussion. So I know for a long time you've been discussing the need for a more centrist-based solution or just less partisanship. I just wanted to ask two quick questions. The first is, what are your thoughts on what's going on with the Arizona Senate race? Because it seems like there's a very unpopular independent candidate, but the Democratic Party of Arizona is backing someone who I don't see being in sync with the politics of Arizona. And Republicans might be running an election denier for all we know. It just seems like a really crappy situation. So I wanted your thoughts on that. And the last thing, I'm applying for an elected position in my town as a Democrat, and I just wanted any advice that you'd have as someone who has obviously run for office yourself.
Sure. Well, frankly, if you comfortable, you're here on this call. If you like Forward and those principles, identify as a Forward. You have to ask the state organization to recommend you to the national for support. But we will do that. And as I said, we will support people running under any party, independent, Republican, Democrat, Green, as long as they agree to work across the aisle, respect the Constitution, respect the rule of law, and be willing to try to change the way we elect people, opening the process. So that's, I would advise you to do that. Get yourself associated with Forward, and then we can be of some help. As for here in Arizona, it's a mess. I can guarantee that the Republicans will have an election denier. Things still need to shake out as to what's happening at the Senate level. What's Kristen Sinema, I haven't sat down with her yet. I'm going to be doing that not too distant future to see where she really sees herself and how closely she would be willing to be associated, if at all, with Forward. And then maybe that might change some of the dynamics. But for instance, we worked very closely with Evan McMullin in Utah in the last cycle. And we were part of the reason, I think a good part of the reason, why the Democrats agreed not to run a candidate at the end of the day. Now, it didn't help Evan because the Republicans suddenly got serious, because it finally seemed that he was gaining traction, and that scared them. And so they threw a whole lot of money into it. And so the Republicans won. I mean, the theory in Utah was you run an independent because Utahns will never, ever elect a Democrat. You know, that just wasn't going to happen. But to take the Democrats out of that process was very helpful to him. And hopefully something like that will happen here in Arizona. So we don't have a well, I mean, I don't mind if there are 3 or 4 candidates. That doesn't bother me, particularly if you have ranked choice voting, that's fine. And hopefully we will after the next session, but they have to wait a year. They've recognized as a party now, but to get on the ballot takes another process, and they have to get another vote, and that's not going to be in this cycle.
Right. Thank you, Governor.
Next up, sorry, I don't have your name. It just says iPad on the Zoom.
Well, a very intelligent iPad.
You are muted, my friend.
Okay.
There
All
we
right.
go.
Am I unmuted now?
Now you
Yes.
are unmuted.
Okay. Hey, Governor Whitman, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. My name's Hakeem. Yeah. I forgot to type in my name. So.
Oh. Well, we see you now, Hakeem. We know you're real. Not just
Okay,
an
that's
iPad.
good. Yeah. No, I remember when you were governor. I was a kid actually at the time.
I know.
But.
Long time ago.
Yeah, it was. But yeah, one of the reasons that I've decided to join the Forward Party is just because, I'm a moderate Democrat, and I just feel like, the party really just moved far to the left, particularly on the, the cultural issues. There's really just a lot of focus on, the cultural issues, less focus on what really matters, I think, to the American people. We never talk about the thing, like, for instance, nobody talks about like the debt and deficit anymore. Like nobody. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? It's like,
Mhm.
we're spending trillions and trillions of dollars. I don't hear, there's talk about climate change, which is good, but, I don't hear any talk about nuclear power, which is
Right.
something that I'm interested in. So, yeah, I guess the reason that, I'm interested in the Forward Party is just because I think that, I want to be associated with a party that is big tent and is amenable to common sense solutions,
Mhm.
Well,
Well, that's exactly what we are, Hakeem. That's
Yeah.
what we want. We want to represent people from every walk of life and the issues that matter to them. And that's why, as I said, we're not going to lay out the kind of platform that we're used to seeing from political parties that tell you, okay, here are the issues you have to care about, and here's how you have to care about them. We're not going to do that because we're too diverse a country. It just doesn't
Right.
work. We need people who will represent the people, their constituents, and it's going to be different answers to major questions in different places, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And there are going to be people who say, well, I don't, I can't handle this. It's not precise enough for me. That's okay. Then maybe Forward isn't the place for them. But I think for a great number of people in the country, once they find out about what Forward is offering, we're going to see an overwhelming support start to grow and grow.
Yeah. No, and I'm really looking forward to it, because
Right.
yeah, I'm really concerned about the future of the country,
Yep.
Yeah, I think
We all are. That's why it's
Everybody
important
is.
to change it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Governor Whitman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hakeem. Quick reminder, guys, the RCV campaign, Tanner shared a picture with instructions. Please do so. If you haven't signed in, do so you get credit for your participation. Forward National likes to do fun little things for supporters who show up to these meetings. Next up here on my screen, our friend from American Promise, Marie.
Oh, hi,
There.
Brian.
Hey.
Hi, Brian, and to everyone here today. And thank you, Governor Whitman, for presenting information to the group. I think it's really important to hear voices like yours who have experience in this political warfare, especially here in New Jersey. And I just wanted to make an observation, and that is that there are so many features of the political system here in New Jersey that are anti-little d Democratic. We have closed primaries. We have the line on the ballot. We have campaign finance laws that are very, very protective of the power of the parties, the political action committees that that the leaders can wield, to favor certain candidates and so on. So I wonder, in terms of, if you really had to say, what's the best thing to do going forward. It's important to get people in every local political sphere, like you said, from the most basic up to the state assembly and then on into the national party. But don't you think that here in New Jersey, that one of the key things to do is really to work on fixing some of those anti-democratic measures? I think the ranked choice voting and the open primaries particularly. I see Sue Davies shaking her head as the leader of the independent voters here in New Jersey, and she and I've worked together. American Promise, I think you're aware, is nonprofit national citizen advocacy organization working on, at a federal level, on a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United. And we are really particularly working across the aisle with some new language that seems to be more appealing. So I just wonder, like maybe that.
No, I agree with you 100%. And I really honestly think that that's the ranked choice voting and open primaries. That's the first thing we need to do. Because until we can get independent voices being heard, and even if they don't win, but at least during the campaigns, to raise people's awareness of the key issues and the things that have to happen and how controlled the state of New Jersey is by the parties. It's not, because most people, you're working hard at the national level and the local level you understand these issues. Everybody on this call has a higher level of understanding than the average person in New Jersey, because it's not their everyday life. It's not the most important thing to them. The most important thing to them is, I'm going to make my rent, or will I still have a job at the end of the week? And so we've got to recognize that, which means we really have to educate people as to what ranked choice voting is, what open primaries means. And that's an issue in and of itself, because as you well know, that we don't teach civics much in school anymore. So young people coming out have no clue. And it's up to us to educate them, and their parents don't, many of them, because again, it's not their main life. It's not how they live, what they're concerned about every day. So we need, I think, really that starting with a good process to educate people as to what ranked choice voting and open primaries mean to them, what it says to them. It's going to give you more choice. It's going to enable you to decide the best candidate, not the party person, not have to just say, oh, I've always been a Republican, so I'm going to check that box, or I've always been a Democrat and that's the way I'll vote, and get them to feel more empowered. And that's what it's about, why it's important to them. But we need to educate them on what ranked, how it works and what it means.
I want to put in a teeny plug that I haven't really heard said in many of our good governance type of meetings around the state. And that is that I'm from Cherry Hill, so I'm kind of South Jersey.
Yeah.
And we have a big problem in our media system. We have a sort of a North Jersey focus, and we have a South Jersey focus. And we really don't have a good statewide medium to not only get information about the civics, but also even to share the information about the candidates. And I think that we need to really seriously think about a proposal to make some sort of state-funded platform for all candidates to be able to so a voter can say, well, who are these people on my ballot? And be able to look on this one place to find that information out. It's difficult even to find out sometimes for somebody who knows, like myself. So I just want to.
Fortunately, our public channel isn't getting the support that it deserves, and that's a problem. But I will also say that I think a lot of the problem is that so many of the local papers have gone out of business. And at least when you have the local papers that are active and that really provide the coverage, they can provide the coverage needed for the local candidates and educate people that way. But I don't disagree with you at all that it's a shame that we've lost that, because all you do is you get the Inky or the New York Times. I mean, as Benjamin Franklin said, New Jersey is a valley of humility between two mountains of conceit.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. So, Governor, do we have time for one more question?
One more, and I'll try to be quick.
Wonderful. Let's go to Sue, who you were right up next.
Okay. Hello.
Hi, Sue.
I have a little bit of a cold, so bear with me. Thank you so much for your remarks and the opportunity to be at this meeting and chat with you. I am an independent, been one for 37 years already, worked on all different kinds of parties, all kinds of campaigns, and I've been on the open primary bandwagon in New Jersey for quite a while. New Jersey is one of the worst states for independents, even as we have 2.4 million. So would you talk a little bit more? You mentioned open primaries. Marie mentioned open primaries. We've actually gone backwards. This year they passed a new resolution that independents will be prohibited from getting mail-in ballots in the primaries, and instead we are being sent party registration forms, which is actually a statement to us that we shouldn't be independents from the state. But I wondered if you would say a little more about the fight for open primaries. And if you look at California, they have 3 times the rate of participation in the primaries that we do with open primaries.
Sure.
We're also doing a
that's-
session on open primaries.
Yeah, well, that's the case, and I don't have the actual figures, the percentages, but that's the case, and I think every state that does have open primaries is you get a much better turnout because people have more choice and they feel it matters. Their vote matters because in our state, in New Jersey, a lot of people don't. Why bother? It's not going to make a difference, particularly if you're an independent. And so it's again, it really there've been independent movements, but what we can do with Forward as an organized entity and an organized party is really pump that message out as to what the benefits are of opening the system, and to highlight the fact that the bills that are being passed are ones that would just restrict it, would make it harder. It is not going to be an easy fight. But at least we now have a national organization that is committed to helping people get through this and to work on it with a message that seems to be, I'm not surprised about it. I mean, it resonated with me, but it's resonating with people. And we're getting people across the country who are actively working toward it, not just supporting, not just saying, I support the idea, but going out and actually organizing and going door to door and getting the kind of ballot access that's necessary to finally push enough so that you have some change happening. It's hard in New Jersey. It's going to be harder in New Jersey than almost anywhere else. And but we've seen it happen. And it is happening in states now across the country. And Florida, as I say, is not one where you'd expect them to be welcoming a third party with open arms. But it's happening. It's happening there. It's happening in Texas. So I'm feeling better about the prospects than I have in a long time because of the enthusiasm of the people who are associated with Forward, their dedication and their willingness to work and work hard. So I think we're in a better place than we've been. And again, I also think the American people are now getting to a point where you have so many registered independents, you're finally starting to get to the numbers where they're going to have some influence, and those elected leaders are going to have to pay attention. I want to thank everybody for being on this call, and Brian, thank you so much for organizing in New Jersey and making me proud of my home state. Fight back.
Thank you. And shout out to the entire state leadership team, because this is absolutely a tremendous group effort. Every single week we're meeting, talking about pushing the Forward agenda here in New Jersey. Governor, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for gracing us today and for sharing so much information, so much knowledge, so much experience. We are beyond grateful for this, and we hope to be able to host you again in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd love to. I'll be there all summer, and 8 months of the year I'm in New Jersey.
Wonderful. We'll do an in-person one maybe in the summer.
Great.
All right, guys, thank you all for joining us. We will try to get to those questions that we did not get to today. Just drop them in the chat. Please do the RCV campaign. We sent the instructions several times, but if you do have questions, let us know. If you want to be involved in leadership, let us know. Aside from that, have a phenomenal Saturday and take care, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.